All right, people. So our next review is going to be for season 4 of Invincible. Here, season 4 of Invincible is all about the Viltrumite War, which is in full swing now. We got Mark taking on the invading Viltrumites there, who are trying to increase their reach. They're trying to expand their empire. This also has the introduction of Thrag, which was a big thing for this show. There, people were like, "Oh, this is highly anticipated. Who's going to
Mhm.
voice Thrag?" And his coming in the series there. And Lee Pace is the new addition there as Thrag, and I'm going to get into him there. I don't know if I'm 100% sold on Lee Pace's Thrag. I don't
Mhm.
know if the voice matches too much, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Nick. Being a guy who you've read the comics and everything like
Mhm.
that. Um, but that's kind of a lot of what the main thing is here, is the Viltrumite War, the coalition of planets fighting against them, the Viltrumites, and then also kind of a redemption going on with Nolan after all the bad things he's done there. Is Debbie ever going to forgive him
Mhm.
there for what he's done? And yeah, that's kind of set up. Nick, what are your thoughts on Invincible season 4, man?
So, so over the past summer, I finally sat down and read all of the Invincible comics, and just getting to the whole Viltrumite War arc. This was one that I was very curious to see how they were going to adapt, and because so much of I think the drama of the show is this kind of deconstruction of heroism and what does it mean to be a hero. And right away we're getting some of the like hardest scenarios that Mark has ever been put in front of, where he has to make the choices that very few characters should or have been forced to make. Like this is him like really going into the needs of the many versus the needs of the few, especially in how the first episode ends with the second Sequid invasion. And also you get little beats in the comic like Mark finally meeting Eve's parents, seeing more of their relationship develop, and introducing more of the redemption arc for Nolan, which I wasn't crazy about how they handled it in the comic, because in the comic it kind of felt like they just wanted to speed run it to make Nolan a likable character again. And here they're telling it with so much like weight and nuance that as much as Nolan wants to be redeemed and is like doing his best, the sheer carnage that he wrought onto Earth, it's a question of can he even be redeemed, and if so, does he even deserve it?
Right.
Yeah, and we see the last scene, there was a lot of trauma going on. I mean, there's still a lot of trauma here as
Mhm.
well there. And especially with the Debbie character. I mean, she was like walking around shoeless, like just in the street like a homeless person there. But now she has a new guy now, Paul, I believe, yeah, that was his name, Paul. Who's
Mhm.
just good guy. He's just good guy 101. He's just smiling.
Good boring for boyfriend.
Yeah, just no controversy, no issues, He didn't try to do a genocide. He's just hanging out, man. He's just like, I'm just here, Like, hey, you go get him, boys. You go beat up them aliens in space, boys. You got it.
He's like the dorky dad trying to be supportive for them.
Yeah,
Right, which I think is an interesting dynamic because, like,
Mhm.
it's set up where like Superman's the dad, where a Superman type character is the dad, but then obviously that goes off the wall. So it's kind of an interesting sort of character reset to have that dynamic in there.
yeah. But it is kind of, I mean, the Nolan kind of redemption, I think they play it pretty well there. And also that everybody's mad at him.
Mhm.
And everybody's, I mean, obviously for obvious reasons. We see even with Oliver there. And there's some good quieter moments in the show when there isn't all this action. Like I love the stuff when they were on the planet together.
Mhm.
When
Yeah, that
Mark was
that I
healing
think is
up.
the highlight of that episode, because Mark kind of gets taken out of commission for it for a little bit, because he has a rematch with Conquest, who he thought he killed at the end of season 3.
Mm,
Right.
yeah.
And
And
all of that stuff between Nolan and Oliver, that is new for the show. Like,
okay.
well, not the father-son bonding stuff, all of the animosity beforehand.
Okay, so
Well,
Oliver's more quicker to forgive him. Like he
Uh-huh.
doesn't really. Okay. Um. and he has to also make amends there because what he said about Oliver's mother, and like that was a mistake. So of course now he's mad. I'm just like, oh shit, now I gotta say sorry for
Right.
that, and all that kind of dealing with. But I loved a lot of that stuff there. This is only 8 episodes this
Mhm,
season, so it's pretty short.
Mhm.
And then some people were saying maybe with some of the filler type of stuff, like the episode, I think was more the lower rated episodes for the
mhm.
entire series was the one where you went to hell.
Yeah,
That
Yeah.
episode.
that's the lowest rated episode of the season. That was a planned arc in the comic that Robert Kirkman wanted to do, but sales were kind of like at the borderline of Image Comics canceling it. So he had to scrap that and put the Omni Man reveal earlier than he had planned it.
Mm,
Right. Yeah, I remember seeing that in an interview, which is interesting to read in hindsight,
Mhm.
but I do agree that that episode in Hell is
Uh-huh.
not very good,
It,
honestly.
it's
It's kind of boring, and I just didn't really care, to be quite honest,
it,
about that episode.
I'm of two minds. It's an episode I enjoyed. I enjoyed seeing the dynamic between Mark and Damien Darkblood because, especially where Mark is at this point of the season, he's kind of like dealing with a lot of the moral questions of the things that he's had to do. Especially because in the first episode, they add more of a ticking clock to his decision in the show than in the comic, but he, murders Russ Livingston, who is this poor innocent guy who's possessed by the Sequids. And
Mhm.
just because, and it's such great writing because you see how much that decision weighs on Mark throughout the first 3 episodes. And he's asking these questions of, is, goodness even a thing? And am I, gonna end up here? And Darkblood kind of dispels a lot of that. It's like hell really isn't how the Christians defined it, at least in this universe.
You
mm.
know, you've actually kind of changed my mind a little bit on that episode. I still don't think it's a great episode, but it has more merit now with
Yeah,
that explanation.
as far as like character writing, I think it's stronger than a lot of people think. But whereas Invincible, it's kind of always towed that line between filler episodes, like even like the more even episodes in previous seasons that kind of like turned away from the like main or overarching story, like the college episode in the first season, like the one of the early episodes in I think season 2, all of them still kind of came around and with a character arc, or they pushed the story forward in that sense.
Well, like how you said in the college episode, how the mad scientist in that episode would
Mhm,
later go on to create the Reaniman. So it's kind of an interesting way to pull that character and stuff. But just piggybacking off of what everyone has said, I really do think season 4 does a great job of like expanding the universe of Invincible and its characters and making it a really distinct comic superhero universe
mhm,
outside of the big two, which honestly is really difficult to do. But I think the strong character writing and motivations really kind of
mhm,
make Invincible the interesting and nuanced series it is that we all
mhm.
love.
Mm, yeah. Um, I didn't mind the kind of filler episode, I guess you would call it, or it's kind of side quest episode
Mhm.
of him
It,
going to
it
hell.
it's the one that feels the most like filler.
Yeah, it's a little out of place in the season there, but I did like this kind of exploration of these other characters in this other world there, and Damien Darkblood, who's kind of like a mix of, I guess, like Intricate the Demon and Batman put together, I guess, with
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
he's basically Rorschach and Etrigan and the Question.
Yeah,
Oh
he's kinda
yeah.
got that there. He's like this, yeah, detective demon. And then Mark has to kind of fight on the side of Satan to fight these other people.
Yeah, who's
Uh,
who's I think voiced hilariously by Bruce Campbell.
yeah, which I
And,
didn't even know
you
Bruce
of course,
Campbell.
you get one segment where he reminds you that he is in fact voiced by Bruce Campbell.
By
Yeah.
the way, an amazing casting decision to have Bruce Campbell play that character.
Uh,
I've gotten a lot of mileage out of that clip when he's finally powered up.
Right.
so yeah, that was pretty nice there. And then also the stuff going on, of course, the big overarching thing we also see with the with the whole Viltrumite War, and then also we see a lot more of the history of Viltrum. How the planet kind of got into the state it did, the virus, and
Mhm,
who released the virus, and the whole. We already know who released the virus, but the
mhm,
actual when we actually see the episode of him doing it and what led him to doing that,
mhm.
Right.
what's that character's name again?
Yeah, Thetis, who's voiced by
Thetis.
Peter Cullen.
Peter Cullen there, we see that. I thought that was really good there. I
Mhm.
wish
Yeah.
we had some more time with that actually,
Mhm.
there of, like, what led him up to the decision of killing the original leader of Viltrum
Mhm.
there, the before,
Mhm.
Thrag, the Grand Regent. I wish he had some time. Does any of you guys agree with that at all, or
Uh, yeah, Thetis is kind of like just a side note in this whole story. He's kind of like a character that doesn't really contribute much to the main story of Mark and Nolan, but he is a vital part of setting up the history of this universe that they're in. And something that I think is really striking, like as horrifying as Viltrumite culture we see in episode 2, where it opens with a flashback of Nolan's time as a youth and experiencing the Scourge virus, and of course his coming out 18th birthday fight with his parents.
Mm.
Right.
And it does something strange where we know how kind of like vicious and psychotic the Viltrumites are as a species, but somehow they still manage to bring some empathy out of them because of this kind of horrific circumstances of the Scourge virus.
Mm.
Right, because, like, it just kinda makes you question just, like, how much do the ends really justify the means,
Uh,
because, yeah, the Viltrumite culture is horrific, and it would have led to, like, potentially billions of deaths around the universe, but at the same time, you kinda have to wonder, like, did this need to happen? Would there have
mhm.
been a different way? But, it's
Which
just kind of a hard question to wrestle with.
yeah, which the Scourge virus, it's shown in the comics, but it doesn't have the emotional weight that it does, which I think is very important leading up into next season and how that ends with Alan's character when we get to that.
Mm.
Yeah. We see that Thetis dies there, because when,
Mhm.
Thrag, like I said, the big character there, does he
Oh
live
yeah.
up to the hype there, you think, when he actually does show up
I
in the show?
Yeah, I was watching this show week to week and all throughout Twitter because episode 6 it kind of ends with Thrag just being kind of like the Phantom Menace in the background. All of that
Mm.
went away with episode 7.
Mm. Uh,
Yeah, I have no frame of reference for the Invincible comics. I have not read them,
Mhm.
but I was really impressed with Thrag. I thought Lee Pace did actually a good
Mhm.
job with the role as sort of like a more dignified sort of
Mhm.
terror of this character, and thought he was a really great addition. And I thought just a really great antagonist for Mark and Nolan to
Mhm.
combat against.
mm.
Yeah,
Uh,
not just on a physical level, just purely psychologically, especially with the final episode of the season.
Hmm.
And how like he is kind of desperately trying to hold his species together because there is less than 50 of them left. They are on the brink of extinction and he's kind of doing everything in his power to ensure the survival of his species.
yeah. I mean, you definitely feel the power
Mhm. Oh,
Thrag there.
you mean when he pulls Nolan in with the gravitational pull of his damn wind up?
Um,
Wow.
yeah, let me show that clip there, because that was actually really good there because he just, like, I mean,
Man knocked Nolan into and out of orbit.
Man,
it
this show becomes like Dragon Ball Z level fights with when Thrag is involved, especially in episode 7, with like when they go back and forth between space and the surface of Viltrum.
like, yeah, you see this right here. And there's even a scene where, Mark gives it all these guys, he's trying to punch him, and then he just punts him directly on the skull there, and it's just nothing.
We got a fucking impact frame and it did nothing. And for
Wow.
reference, this is after Mark has killed Conquest, who was the, second strongest Viltrumite. And of course, we get a flashback in episode 7 of the Viltrumite Purge. And you had Conquest bending the knee to Thrag, if that kind of tells you how strong he is.
Mm, yeah. Uh, Great stuff there. I mean, that was really good. So I do think he did live up to the hype there, of
Mhm.
that character kind
Yeah,
of showing up. I haven't
yeah,
read the
and like
comics. Yeah.
yeah, and when it was announced that Lee Pace was the voice of Thrag, I was kind of like the rest of the internet where, huh, that wouldn't have been my first choice. But seeing him more, kind of seeing how the show is interpreting Thrag as a character, giving him this air of regalness that I don't think was very present in the comics, because he's a lot more psychotic in the comic.
Mhm.
And just I really was taken with Lee Pace's voice performance on this.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of what Invincible does really well is
Mhm,
they'll cast actors for these roles that at first you don't really see, like, at least
mhm,
to me, you don't see on paper how they could fit this character, but then they end up surprising you because, like, they added nuance to them that you didn't really
mhm.
think that they'd have. And Lee Pace is a great example. And just quick side note, but if Kevin Conroy was still with us, I would have cast him
Mhm.
as Thrag, honestly.
Mm. I know people wanted the guy from Vegeta, the guy who voices the English actor for Vegeta. People wanted, and then this is a little bit of his voice right here. Then this is the punch I was talking about. With that there.
Right.
Of us. I killed Conquest. I'll kill you too. Show me.
And then just nothing. I mean, just not even a pushback, nothing. I mean, Jesus Christ.
I'm not impressed.
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, definitely, yeah, lives up there. But um and then we also see like and I'll show the what he does there, because they end up destroying Viltrum, the planet. Like
Mhm.
Nolan, Thetis, Mark, they basically just dive through the whole planet there. They fly through the whole planet and just destroy it. And that obviously leaves Thrag incredibly pissed. I mean, that's pretty much the only thing they can really do there to really impact him much. And we see the kind of result of that, where he ends up killing Thetis. He just straight up
Mhm.
just rips his head off,
Mhm.
and we kind of see that. Let
Yeah,
me show that.
before Nolan and Mark have even time to react.
Right.
I mean, it was just that kind of fast there.
But yeah, as good as the season is, and as good as the space stuff is, I will say I do think they kind of focus it on the space Filtrum stuff a little too much. Like, I kind
Mhm,
of wish there was more of a balance of, like, the Earth Defense Force kind of issues
mhm,
and Guardians of the Globe, I should say, sorry, and that kind of side
mhm,
of the story. But then again, this is the Viltrumite war season, so I don't really know
mhm.
how much legitimacy I can leave to that, that problem.
Well,
But
this is the Viltrumite war season, and the Guardians of the Globe, they kind of, at least 2 prominent characters get taken out of the equation, at least,
right.
in this season, which that leads into one of the more interesting arcs in the comics. That's another one that I can't wait to see them adapt.
I've heard that story is interesting, so I'm
Mhm.
very intrigued by that as well.
And this is right.
Veltramites, your world is destroyed. Surrender is your only option. No! I choose death.
Oh, jeez, man. Ah, jeez. But yeah, and like you mentioned, we have some Earth stuff, but not that
Mhm.
much there, as much as we've had in previous
Mhm.
seasons. And then also with Nolan and Mark and Oliver going off there, they're gone for a long time. They're gone for
Yeah.
a while there.
Yeah, I think in the finale, they said 10 months.
So
Right.
close to a year that they're gone. And
Mhm.
then when they come back, because they think like everything's going to be destroyed because
Uh-huh.
they
Yeah,
destroyed.
yeah, 7 ends with the cliffhanger of Mark, miraculously recovered, everybody from the Viltrumite War is alive. Alan is now the leader of the coalition of planets. Oliver is, like, stuck in a bacta tank, and, they the Viltrumites have disappeared, and the episode ends with Mark having this horrifying realization, like, they've gone to Earth, and
Mhm.
that's something that episode 8 it's a much quieter season finale for the show that we've gotten, since it's premiered, because episode 8 is traditionally, like, a big battle, Mark and
Right.
Nolan in the first season, Mark and Angstrom in the second, Conquest in the third. And this, it's a much quieter conflict. It's because we're expecting, and the episode opens with this scene of the Viltrumites rampaging and, destroying like an entire city. But it's, just Mark imagining the worst case scenario. And he gets
Right.
to the planet and everything is fine.
Yeah. Everything's
On the surface, at least, it's
Uh-huh.
fine.
Yeah, and that's like a great note in this episode because throughout it, like as Mark is like talking with his loved ones and even Cecil, he has like PTSD flashes of Thrag just horrifically murdering them.
yeah.
Right.
All the people closest to him,
Mhm.
Adam, Eve, his mother, everybody. And we see that, and yeah, everything shows up. Everything seems initially kind of fine there. And then also we get this really emotional scene with Mark and Adam Eve there,
Mm.
where we see that what's happened to her, and then she tells him that she was pregnant, but when he was gone, and that she didn't know, if he was gonna come back or not. And she had to make a decision without him. Um, and that's kind of led to some issues with her there as far as emotionally, and then physically, this was also a thing in
Mhm.
the comics. She put on weight there,
Mhm.
with that, I guess, a controversial moment in the show there to stupid people, I guess.
Yeah,
um
idiots.
I
with
mean,
that.
I think it's about as well handled as you can
Mhm.
do for that scenario. Because, like, I don't know, I'm
Yeah,
not an
yeah,
expert
so
about how to
so
do
much of
that.
the theme yeah, so much of the theme of the show, and especially this season, is kind of, like, impossible choices. Like, no
Mm.
matter what you do, there's, like, no good to come out of whatever decision you make. Like with the Sequid invasion where Mark has to kill, Russ Livingston, the dome shield was at 1% integrity, bulletproof, he was flying, but who knows if he could have gotten there in time with the disruptor.
True.
Yeah.
True. I mean, that is a good point that, like, this whole season is sort of built up on impossible choices, like an impossible choice for them to fight the Viltrumite War, an impossible
Mhm,
choice to, like, you know, come to some sort of consensus with them at the end of the season. It's,
mhm,
kind of fascinating to see.
It's funny that somebody was pointing out that a lot of Mark and Eve scenes is kind of like them talking on the roof and then having sex and then back to roof again and then talking, having a serious talk and then back to having sex again. It's kind of a lot of that kind of goes on in it. But yeah, I thought that was like really well done and great
mhm.
voice performances from there's Stephen Yun and I forgot what's her
And
name
Yeah,
again?
Gillian Jacobs.
Gillian
Gillian
Jacobs.
Jacobs, yeah.
Really, really well
Oh,
done
Britta's
there.
in this?
The pain in her voice there, really, really works there. And just for Mark to be also very supportive in that moment, that was also really important. So I thought that was really good.
Mhm.
But we see that, yeah, that Thrag, he actually is on Earth.
Mhm.
And that he basically, it's a no-win situation. He basically just lays out the terms of a deal, even though like it doesn't matter if
It's like,
Mark agrees
yeah,
to the
you don't
deal or
have a
not.
choice. And the thing that strikes me especially about that scene is like Thrag's plan would have worked if he didn't have that conversation with Mark at all. He just like let him know purely to torture him out of spite for destroying Viltrum.
Yeah.
Mm.
He just says that, "Hey, listen, we're gonna be on this planet, and the purpose of us being on this planet is to repopulate. And because obviously you're the example that humans are the best
Mhm.
breeding people to breed with for
Yeah,
Viltrumites."
which
Uh,
was the whole reason they sent Nolan to Earth in the first place to see if like they could interbreed with humans to create as close to Viltrumites as they could.
Right.
yeah. So you have that. So I thought that was also really good there. That he's
Mhm.
just like, yeah, you know what I mean. It's like I'm giving you the option, but really you don't have an option to do this. And Mark has to, like you mentioned, tough decision to just kind of go like, I mean, yeah, sure, I agree.
Yeah, it's like his it's a beautifully like done scene on a visual storytelling front because Mark is like flashing with all of the like horrific scenes that he's seen, and before he says yes, he just flashes to Eve.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah. So I haven't read the comics there, so I don't know. I know well a little bit of what happens. What's gonna
Uh-huh.
probably happen next in season 5 there with it. But yeah. Was this the best season for you? You think, Nick, of the show?
As far as like pushing story forward, like giving us character arcs and beats that were kind of a long time coming, and how they were handled. This is I think I put this right up there with season 1 as far as, like, my favorite season of the show. As far as, like, the pacing goes, as far as the character writing, the scale of the action that we get, especially with episodes 6 and 7 of the Viltrumite War. All that I think is really well handled, and it's something to, like, praise with the writing of the show and how all of this like incredible action is going on, how you have the sense that characters aren't safe no matter what. And the most tense I am in this entire season is in episode 4 when Nolan finally has her confrontation with Debbie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a that's a great moment, and I will agree with the sentiment about this being one of the better seasons of the show.
Mhm.
I think every season has been really strong, to be
Mhm.
quite honest. I think they've all done really good jobs of like pushing the story and characters in really interesting directions. But I think given all the impossible choices Mark faces in this particular season, I think this is definitely one of the better seasons of the show for
Mhm.
sure.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. What will be your final thoughts? Rating for it, Neil.
I think this is the probably the best animated superhero show on right now, and
Mhm.
I think this is peak animation. It's really really good, and it deserves all the praise it gets. So peak animation.
What about you, there, Nick?
Yeah, the whole reason I started, streaming, TV recaps week to week was because Invincible was one of these, and I stand by it. This was like the peak of the peak in the season of peak
Mm.
of like all of those shows, great shows airing all at the same time, and it, not only just pushes story forward of the comic, it's like giving us incredibly well written character stuff. It's giving some of the best voice performances, some of the most nuanced and well written comic shows on television right now, and setting us up not and kind of like what we were talking about, setting us up for what is going to be in a very intriguing season 5 because we haven't talked about a character that's introduced in the premiere episode, Dinosaurus, who plays a much bigger role in this next arc of the comic. You know,
Hmm.
Thra Alan, he gets a message from the late great Thetis that he has a new and improved scourge virus, but there is a not 0% chance that it could also kill all human life,
Hmm.
Mm. Well,
which
yeah.
is what we were alluding to earlier about, showing us the effect of the scourge virus on Viltrum, and that adds a little bit more emotional weight and tension to when Alan has to make that decision next season. And kind
Yeah.
of this like new uneasy understanding between Nolan and Debbie that we get at the end of the season. That's an interesting thing that I'm looking forward to on the next one. The like reconciling that happens between them, it's much quicker in the comic. I don't think it's well earned, and that's because comic Debbie and show Debbie are two completely different people. Comic Debbie is much more of a passive character. It is just relegated to being Mark's mom.
Right.
You think
Yeah,
it makes
I've heard that's one of the better adaptations of of the show for sure.
yeah. So you think it makes sense for Debbie to get back together with Nolan? Yeah.
They got a long way to go before I'm cool with that. But trusting this show's writers, I'm down with how I'm curious to see how they handle it. But when if they decide to go that route and just tell it straight from the book, then I imagine it'll work.
Nice. I give it a tune in. I give it a good tune in
Mhm.
there. I think it's better than last season there. I'd have to see like how I feel about season 2 and season 1 again. But yeah, in terms of, got some good fights in here there.
Mhm.
The conquest scene, even though it wasn't the most like dynamic fight, I mean, it was just him choking the life out of him. I mean, just the
Hey, when
the passion
when you
and
got that
intensity.
motherfucker, that's all you got. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't know half Viltrumite, half human people had that many organs and guts in their body there.
Hey,
Yeah.
Conquest was just digging around to see if Mark really had that dog in him.
Mhm. And he
uh,
did.
but that was kind of some great moments like that, and some smaller emotional moments. Nolan, Debbie, Adam, Eve, and Mark. Even the scene in the finale with Thrag and Mark there of that decision. That really kind of happens there. And the Viltrumite War, I don't know how it is in the comic there, so I don't know if how well it adapts that there.
It's more or less straight from the page.
Okay, so it's pretty one to one that this is. Okay. So that kind of works there with it. But yeah, just more, growth from this show. We are gonna get, these seasons yearly, which I like there. We won't have to
Mhm.
wait too long for that. Season 5 is gonna be coming out next year, so that's pretty good there. But expect still a lot more to come from this. So
Mm.
still enjoying it. So I'll give it a tune in there for Invincible season 4. Yeah, that was our thoughts on that.
Mhm.
Yeah, very good stuff there.